Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is the Vocal Profiling Show with Richard Olson and
Sherry Edwards. Glad to have you.
Sorry, I forgot to say. I forgot to say that it's December 3rd, 2013, and I probably forget because it's like amazing to me that it's already December. Excuse me.
Yes, I agree. It's just absolutely incredible. Well, we want to welcome everybody to Vocal Profiling Live. This is a duet that we do on Tuesdays with another show called Happy Hour. And in Happy Hour, we have you call us, and we do vocal profiling on your voice. We stick a microphone in your face and have our computer churn up everything and spit out information about you. Or if you can talk somebody else into it, that's okay. On this half of the show, and this is every other week, we do things with other people's voices, famous people, people we want to know about. And we're going to be talking this evening about a book called Life Inside the Bubble. And I wish that would get out of there. Okay. For those of you who know the show, you know that we talk about the frequencies of the voice, and you can watch the show as well as listen to it on Blog Talk Radio. If you want to watch the show, go to soundhealthoptions.com, go to radio, then Vocal Profiling Live, and it will give you the link and the phone number. And if you are just on WebEx and want to just go listen on Blog Talk Radio because you don't have a good connection, it's 347-850-1407. Do you know, guys, when you go over and listen in Blog Talk, we get more credit for that. That's how we got to be a featured show. They just take all the people who listen each time and look at it. Well, we've got that fixed. I got to remember to do that again. We're going to be talking about secrets and scams and somebody who's going to tell it like it is. Now, I don't know if we should apologize or just tell you what's going to happen, but we are going to play some video of Alex Jones where he is interviewing this guy. I also did interviews or listened to interviews and used them for evaluations on Fox, but they interrupted each other so many times I couldn't use that very well. But Dan Bongino was a bodyguard for President Bush and also for Clinton and now Obama. And he left very disheartened from the Secret Service and his position of bodyguard, and we wanted to explain to you why, because he's written a book about it. I am the kind of person that reads 3 or 4 books at a time. I've got one on the table and one in the bathroom and wherever else. I picked up this book, and I could not put it down. It's a new book, just came out. He is one of us. This guy is just absolutely somebody I think all of you are going to adore. So as we look at this book, it starts talking about him leaving Secret Service, a position that he had worked hard to have for many, many years. He started in New York, grew up in absolute poverty from a broken home. The second father was abusive. He doesn't say how abusive or how the abuse manifested, but there is hints of beatings and having to hide from the man and trying to protect his mother. How hard it was in school and how much he loved school and wanted to learn and just wanted to protect people most of his life. He worked himself through school to become a New York policeman, and his wife was very concerned about that. He was even reluctant to marry her because of the life. Some of the things that the book does not say is how much it took out of him to leave his wife and to go on these jobs. But he worked himself up through the police department, was a decorated policeman, then went into the Secret Service. He wanted to protect his country, and he worked on many military assignments, protecting President Bush, protecting Jenna Bush on her many tours, protecting Clinton and what was going on. And then along came Obama. And he has walked away from that very prestigious job. Okay, and in some of this, it's going to be in and out, because I've taken several different snippets, and then we're going to look at his voice. I will tell you beforehand, he is telling the truth. He has a strong foundation. He hedges a bit on what Obama is really like. He is very, very concerned about the reputation of the Secret Service. But his love of humanity with a lack of ego is incredible. So he has resigned now, resigned in absolute disgust of what he heard going on behind closed doors, that the decisions being made are being made based on political positioning and advantage, not for anything that deals for the public good. He is saying that there is a commitment to evil when people don't do something about this, and he includes some congressmen. He did name Mike Adams as one of the good guys and several other people. But one of the things it says in the book that I shouldn't be surprised after watching Wag the Dog. He decided that after his resignation, he needed to go into politics and set things right. After risking his life, after being a policeman, being FBI, being Secret Service, and protecting really important people. It was more important to him to protect the position of the people making the rules for the rest of us. That's where his position comes from. And you'll hear him talk about being attacked, nails being driven into his tires. He's being attacked by both Republicans and Democrats. Now, he was running for congressman in Maryland. He was going to beat out the Democratic person. He said he ran Republican because that was kind of the opposite of what was going on with Obama, and he found some of the decisions that Obama made very repugnant. You'll hear him talk about some, and he reveals what's behind Benghazi, what's behind the national organization that's taken all of your information. The one behind Benghazi he doesn't say in this video, but I'll tell you about it because I listened to it on another video about IRS and what was going on there. But this is what happened in Maryland. The Democrats were going to lose. The Democrats chose somebody and gave them many millions of dollars and had them split the Republican ticket. The guy really wasn't interested in being in the position, he found out later. Of course, both the Republicans lost because they split the ticket. The other guy wouldn't even talk to him. But that he says that is a ploy in politics to get their people elected, and both parties are involved. And the only party that isn't involved in these shenanigans is the Tea Party, and that's why they're trying to split the political parties. The name of the book, Inside the Bubble, Why a Top-Ranked Secret Service Agent Walked Away from It All. Now, to me, it's much more important of why he walked away to protect the people and to get away from what he considered an absolute criminal element, and I don't think he says the word Nazi, but he refers sort of to it, a criminal cartel element in our government that is doing things piecemeal and bringing so much at once on us. And you'll hear Alex Jones talk about this, and Dan agrees with him. So I'm going to start with the one that is the smaller one. Okay, we're going to play this just for a little bit, but Alex Jones does very well about bringing things out of this guy that other interviewees weren't able to do. Richard, let me know if people can't hear. This is Alex Jones interviewing Dan Bongino.
You're getting your office broken into. Stuff's going on. I think not telling us is going to put you in more danger than telling us. What is it that's so horrible, that's worse than we know, worse than we think, at the White House? You were the head guy that ran his foreign trips. We know that's the most important position in the Secret Service because that's seen as the most dangerous, is when the president goes overseas. I mean, tell us who Obama really is. We've got Harry Lennox coming out saying he's basically an actor and that he secretly trained him 18 years ago. Dan Bongino, what's really going on here?
Well, here's the deal, Alex. You even have new things coming out with the financial monitoring, which we're seeing today with the agencies, the CIA, with financial transactions overseas. So think of the picture right now, the government, this big government mentality, big government president. They now have your email, allegedly just the subject and headers and the to and from, which I strongly would debate. They now have consumer financial data from any transactions you may have made overseas, and the consumer financial relations board right now. They're internally developing a whole profile of credit card company data as well. So we're getting into this society right now, the surveillance society, where, as I said on that clip, which got something like, I think even the YouTube got 400,000+ views. You're in a society now where your life is really no longer your life. It's your life, which is available for public consumption at the government's behest. They have the key to your personal and private life, which I find really frightening. And when I said worse than you know, that's exactly what I meant, because here's what's really bothersome about this whole thing, Alex. It really doesn't seem that anybody's really that disturbed about it, besides, folks in the libertarian, I think, wing of the party that are raising the flag here. But, like I said, last time I was on the show, I had a bunch of your listeners jump on and follow me, and they're really active, and they're really getting involved, saying we want answers. And
specifically, I talked to a Secret Service agent, and this is pretty unbelievable, but it's true. I don't even like saying this but he didn't give me anything secret. He just said, keep doing what you're doing. It's horrible. Almost all of us are freaked out. It's unbelievable. Obama is basically worse than you're even saying. I heard this about a year ago, and then from another Secret Service agent through another person I know. And they wouldn't even talk to me except through somebody else's phone. Right. And then one of them passed a message on to me, and they said, look, you're right, it's bad. What's going on? We know Hillary had like crack pipes on the Christmas tree back in the 90s and like Mao Zedong. We know 7 of the czars publicly praised Mao Zedong, the greatest mass murderer in history. Tell us, you said you had to quit, it was so horrible, but you can't tell us. Tell us what Obama's like.
Well, listen, I don't want to get into his personal stuff because it would be inappropriate. It did take an oath, but I feel the need to sound the siren here because, the Secret Service, there was some hack on the Republican side. Of course, a lot of the establishment folks tend to come after me as well. That took a shot at me and my book, Light Inside the Bubble. He took a shot at me, basically saying that, you shouldn't do that because then the Secret Service and it'll damage the sensitive relationship between the Secret Service and the president. Alex, when I say worse than you know, this fog of scandals encompassing just about every cabinet agency, whether it's EPA, the HHS, DOJ, they're all encompassed by scandals. I don't have time to go into each and every one of them. Most of them are public. But even look at something like the Secret Service. They were used as some kind of a pawn in this shutting down the White House to White House tours. And you may say, oh, well, that's an insignificant thing. They just blamed the Secret Service. We all inside knew it wasn't true. He just looked for an excuse. But what's to say later on that, he doesn't say to the Secret Service guys, something to the effect of, hey, listen, I want those guys, arrested for protesting or something. And they feel the need to, somehow comply. I mean, we can't go forward in a society where we're not bedrocked in some sense of constitutional law. Law by discretion and rule by discretion is no rule at all. It's monarchy. I mean, it's almost near anarchy at some point. So we can't have this. It's the responsibility of people like me, I believe, to speak out. Some may disagree, and that's fine, but sure. I'm not going to get buried 6 feet deep knowing I was part of the problem.
Sure, Dan. I don't want to know about Obama's boyfriends. What I want to know about is you said basically the anti-American, you didn't build it, socialist commie stuff. And I know you've sworn an oath and made agreements and stuff, to not spill the beans on what went on inside. But there's a reason they're breaking into your office and threatening you and following your family around and stuff. They're scared of what you know. And so, it's almost dangerous for me to be here pushing you to say anything. But, what else can you tell us when you say it's worse than we know? I know Secret Service agents went public against Clinton and it even got photos out of the Mao Zedong on the Christmas tree and the crack pipes. What type of weirdos hang crack pipes and communist leaders on the Christmas tree? These are screwballs.
Well, they're surrounded by, as I said on another show, these acolytes that don't want to tell them he's doing anything wrong. And they don't want to speak up and say, sir, maybe this isn't right, that we handled it. And surrounding yourself with figures that view you as like some kind of messianic figure is really troublesome. That's the kind of thing we see in third world countries with these leaders. So no one wants to kind of stop the runaway train right now. The only thing we have going for us is sadly, political approval ratings right now are so bad. His power is almost being taken away, his de facto power, by the minute. But the administration, man, I couldn't contribute to it anymore. And I was very careful to not hurt him personally with any, deeply insider information. And that's what bothered me so much about some of the criticism. This could have been an easy get-rich scheme, Alex, and I chose not to, to uphold some sense of dignity with the office. And I don't think they've treated me the same way in return. I even waited to get off in detail to leave the job just to not cause any unnecessary controversy. I've been very delicate with the whole issue, and I really...
So they should leave you alone and not follow you around and make threats and break in your office.
Yeah, but there's nothing I've done unethically or anything like that. I'm running because I really feel like there's a very deep problem where we are literally in a constitutional crisis right now where the president just ignores his own fiat, and It doesn't seem like anybody's saying anything. Where are you hearing it?
But what is it that being around him freaks out Secret Service so bad?
It's more that it's not. It doesn't seem to me like anybody is willing to say, like the Clinton administration, where at one point he had, Dick Morris telling him.
But is he like the devil? We see flies coming out of his mouth. What has Secret Service agents literally running the other direction through the wall like a Looney Tunes character?
Well, again, I know. It's great now. There's none of that stuff.
I'm joking. It's a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Dan, let me ask you these questions. We have an article up on Infowars.com. Obamacare fix affirms Obama is absolute dictator with power to change laws as he pleases. Even the former head of the DNC has come out and said that this is dictator behavior. How can he now claim his own law he'll decide what to enforce and not to enforce?
Yeah, this isn't the first time, though, either. You had the exemption for Congress. You had the out-of-pocket requirements he waived. You had the income requirements he waived. You had the employer mandate he waived. This is the odd part about this thick sense of politics on the side where they say, oh, it's the law of the land, and then they turn around 5 minutes later and they ignore the law of the land, which which the law of the land, I would argue, initially wasn't constitutional, but as an extra slap in the face, even once they declared constitutional what wasn't constitutional, he unconstitutionally violated it. If that's like making your head spin right now, I assure you it's making my head spin too. The great irony being the cancellations that they're trying to avoid are going to be recanceled next year with the re-implementation of an unconstitutional law. It's crazy. I mean, we're
and again, the word is, from a lot of high-level sources, this is even hitting mainstream, but I heard it from you as well. The word is they did blackmail members of the Supreme Court.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about that.
Well, you mentioned that the NSA can be used to blackmail people.
Oh, yeah. I said, yeah, of course. I mean, the NSA can always be. That's my worry. I mean, they have congressional BlackBerry records and everything. I mean, this should be a real problem for folks. And again, the NSA thing, when I mentioned the FOGA scandal, seems to be lost in this bigger picture because nobody knows what to focus on. Is it the Obamacare crisis? Is it the HHS shaking down health insurance industries? Is it the EPA bankrupting the coal industry, completely unconstitutional, against the takings clause? I mean, where do we focus? And I think it's almost like one of these buckshot strategies rather than rifle slugs. Just fire the buckshot, and one of them's eventually going to hit, and nobody knows where to block because there's just so much going on right now. Even the Republican Party, even the libertarian wing of the Republican Party in Congress, nobody knows where to focus because there's just so much going on.
I was about to say, we've only got about 5 minutes left with you, but I want to get into this with you and then talk about your book and the campaign here briefly. I know you can't talk about it yet, but I was sent an advance copy, read it, total page-turner. It's Life Inside the Bubble. Folks can see I have the advanced copy right here. Got it about a month ago, so we're going to talk about when that's coming out. But top Secret Service agent left because he wouldn't be dishonorable. That's all he said. He's with us, Bongino.com. Dan Bongino. He's running for Congress. But, sir, I want to expand on this briefly with you because you're one of the only people that's astutely said this, and I know this is their plan because I've read some of the political warfare strategies the CFR puts out. That's almost a plan is to flood so much corruption, bum rushing everyone, that it's almost like when criminals take over an area and break the will of the public and just set the precedent that it's a crime zone, that's what Obama and crew were doing, is just rushing to the finish line, hoping that they gain 1 million miles, and even if we push them back 500,000, they still win.
Well, that's a great analogy, the crime analogy, because in New York, that's exactly what...
Okay, I'm going to stop that here and repeat what he said. This is incredible what he is saying, that our government is like a crime syndicate. He says, Alex Jones says, they flood us with so much corruption, all of these scandals all at once. Whoever has their microphone open, please close it. I'm muting you. Okay. That they flood us with so much corruption. He talked about the scandals, the IRS, the Benghazi, which they're going to talk about again. The TSA, the NSA, National Security, whatever. And all of these, and Obama changing the law, people being blackmailed. In one of his conversations later on, he talks about sitting in or standing at attention at these meetings where it was discussed, planned blackmail. So flood everything with corruption and lots of little ones and then bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like give the bum rush to everyone that's almost like a criminal taking over an area in a town. They'll break the will of the public. There is so much intimidation. So they're setting the precedent that this is a crime zone, the whole of the United States. That's what Obama and their crew are doing, just rushing us all to the finish line, hoping that they can gain 1 million miles, and even if we push them back 500,000, they still win. And on another show, they talk about how they the Democrats brought in and paid for a Republican to run against him. And they wouldn't sit down with him, they wouldn't debate him, just throw the money in to split the party so the Democrats can win. And Dan Bongino agreed with this, agreed that that was absolutely what they were doing.
what happened when I lived in New York, and how they stopped it was the broken windows theory. Meaning at some point you have to draw the line and say, you know what, you get caught drinking in public, even though there's murders going on down the street, we're going to arrest you too, because you may be the guy that's doing the shooting later on. And I think we have to take that broken windows theory to government now and say, you know, we're not even going to accept mild constitutional violations anymore. We're going to issue congressional subpoenas. We're going to put you up on the Hill. And, I mean, what's going to happen in the IRS? Someone in the IRS who used that to go after congressional groups, why did someone come out in handcuffs over there? I mean, this was completely unethical. You start seeing people in the bracelet walking out and perp walking people who violated your constitutional liberty, and people testifying up on the Hill every Thursday and Friday. I assure you something's going to change, but nobody's willing to do it right now. Your analogy was spot on.
You know, before that, you were also a decorated New York police officer, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going from memory. I can't think of a better congressman than somebody that's been a police officer with a good record, then a great Secret Service agent with a great record, who went public about, you know, the fact that he couldn't morally be there, and is now running for Congress, and is now having the entire political system come after you. When you have the rhino Republican leadership attacking you, that is a seal of approval for me that you're a patriot. Do you like the ideas of Rand Paul? Do you like Ted Cruz? I mean, tell us about, just briefly, in a minute or two, your political philosophy.
Oh, yeah, mine's absolutely bedrocked in libertarian, limited government values. I always say to folks, they say, are you a Republican? I say, no, I have to run as one, because there's a two-party system. But you know you're doing something right, Alex, when the barbs come at you from both directions. You know, a guy went after me the other day, a D.C. lobbyist, former so-called Republican. You read what he has to say, a man who's profited handsomely off his insider connection. So you know you're doing it right when both parties are slinging arrows at you. So.
Well, look at the former head of the RNC, Steele. Sounds like, you know, he's left of Lenin or something, to use that political paradigm. Briefly, you told me off air, I mean, it wasn't a secret, but you said the New York Police Department is really waking up to political corruption now as well. What's happening there?
Yeah, I think it was last time we spoke, I'd mentioned a lot of my friends are calling me, and they're just astounded by everything that's going on up there with all of the surveillance state in New York and some of the things they're being asked to do. You know, a lot of people are starting to say, hey, is this right? I think it was just assumed because it landed on your desk and had been vetted through some channels that this was all okay. And people may have been automatons in the past, but that's not happening anymore. A lot of folks, even some of my friends in the government, are starting to call me. I'm sure you get some calls yourself, and starting to question things that I don't think they questioned before. And I think that's going to be the unfortunate legacy of the Obama administration. Just if distrust with government was bad before he got in, it is going to be absolutely epic, and unfortunately.
Sure, so things have gotten bad, but the worm is starting to turn. Lastly, how are you concerned that Obama will try to save his legacy, get his radical transformation of the republic through? Because you're right, he's dropping like a rock right now. I'm really concerned he might start a war, he might pull something. What does your gut and what does your intel tell you about the future of Obama?
Well, it's a propaganda war. It's what it is. He started it yesterday. I mean, why do you think he administratively and unconstitutionally wanted to turn the tide on this cancellation thing for your insurance? Because now he puts it back in the insurance company's laps, knowing they can't go reverse this. They spent 3 years doing it. He wants them to reverse it in 6 weeks. And then what's he going to say? Mark my words, folks. You heard it here first. He is going to say in 6 weeks, look what the insurance company did. They screwed you. I mean, that's a propaganda war that I would argue is even worse than some other kinds of actions he'd take. I mean, it really, really does significant damage to the American economy, the American psyche, trust in our government. This is really devastating stuff, and it's very sad to watch.
Well, Dan, you know a lot about criminology. I've read a lot of it just because it's so interesting. You know, actual criminology, not just the paperback crime novels and crime history stuff that's nonfiction, but good people tend to be blind to evil because we just don't think like that and can't imagine it. And that's why a woman will get in the yellow Volkswagen of Ted Bundy, because he's wearing a nice suit. We have to learn that they're worse than we even think. And you look at Cloward and Piven and the plan to socialize things and then make us become collectivized, and you figure out it really is a plan. And that's why they're so aggressive. I mean, at a gut level, you've been inside there, you know what's going on. They know this is a plan to bankrupt America and basically get everybody on the welfare rolls.
Well, they can't not know. You'd have to not understand basic arithmetic. What their goal ultimately, and the Keynesian principle in economics, their goal is ultimately to make government debt the only viable debt, to take away the private sector for a way to develop capital for your business. Not to get overly wonkish, but that's exactly what they're trying to do.
No, that's it. That they want a monopoly.
Right, but you can't have that, Alex. If you don't run debt, you can't issue bonds. If you can't issue bonds, then they have to get bonds from the private sector, IBM bonds, corporate bonds, stock, equities. They don't want that. They see the private sector as inherently exploitative, as destroying the environment. So what they do is they run up these massive debts, despite the economic apocalypse we're looking at, because they only hope that they crowd out the private market, and your only avenue for investment is the government.
And then they blame the capitalism, when this isn't capitalism, it's crony, insider capitalism with socialism. Well, I can tell you Secret Service guys get an education in economics. I mean, you really need to get in Congress. Dan Bongino, we'll talk to you soon. When's the book coming out?
It's available for pre-order now on Amazon, Life Inside the Bubble. You grab it, you'll get it in a couple days.
But you're not allowed to talk about it until it actually comes out, though.
Yeah, I promise.
When does it officially come out?
November 19th is the official release.
Okay, good. I think you're on that week. All right, Dan, thanks for the time, and it's always great talking to you.
You too, Alex. Take care, bud.
Well.
Okay, let's look at some of the things through vocal profiling that he has said. The last thing he said was about they're trying to control all the financial institutions. As Richard always says, follow the money. I put some of these up as they were talking, but they probably went by too fast. Please talk about tall red lines on the right side. Okay. This is his graph when they were talking about the finances. And this is pieces of two different wave files. One a little bit from Fox about financing, and then some from you just heard a little bit about it there. As you can see, for those of you who have been with us for a while, and if you want to know more and have this program for yourself, you may go to our site, soundhealthoptions.com. Go to, well, let me see if I can find where to go. People say show us because we really don't understand. So go to soundhealthoptions.com, which looks like I've closed it down. Unfortunately, I'll open it up over here. Let's hope that it just opens very, very quickly so everyone can see. Soundhealthoptions.com. Go to downloads. Nano Voice is just there at the first. It's totally free, not even any registration. Those are the programs I used to do this with. So in looking at his voice, you can see most of it is right-brained. He's a very caring problem solver. That I was impressed most of all that his problem solving came from being in trouble himself with an abusive father, broken home, not having enough to eat, having a younger brother, having to take on responsibility at a very early age, and then carrying that through as being a policeman, and then carrying it through as a Secret Service agent, even though his wife objected to one more assignment. He was so good they just wouldn't let him out, and because he planned things so meticulously for every contingency that he was the head honcho about all of this. Some of you are opening your mic and making strange noises, so when you do that, it just takes away from the show and the time that we have to spend together. So the red means reactive. So he was talking about finances here. But even when he's talking about finances, he has an incredibly strong foundation. May please keep your mic closed? Thank you. When you look at the numbers, remember that the bottom line is the primary octave, the foundation. And for men, it's the lower one. For women, it can sometimes be -2 or -3, but for men it's usually the low one. This has a lot of foundation to it. Only one little spot, the note of E, is missing. And he says he speaks extemporaneously. He never writes a speech. But he looks like he's very well versed in what's going on to me. But he has issues with how to make this helpful and useful through words. Notice very little ego going on here. Most of his information is in about useful, physical usefulness, planning. I would vote for this guy. Now, in this one, he was talking about finances. The second, well, there's a whole printout here, and we will put this up on our site under the radio so you can listen and watch the show, and we'll place this up as a Word document so you can look at it. Note here, too, that he has very tall red lines in G and G sharp, spontaneously thinking about what's useful. Now think about where he's coming from. He's got a whole hotel where the president's going to stay, and he has to take into account every exit, every employee, every getaway scheme, every road, every window, every lock. And he can do that to the point where he is the #1 guy they want for any kind of dangerous mission. This one he's talking about what Obama is really like, and you'll hear a little bit more of that in the next one that we're going to play. But looking at how he perceives these issues and then listening to it again a slightly different way gives you the perspective that this is a man I'd want in office. When they ask him what Obama is like, he becomes scattered. He really doesn't want to say. He wants to honor his commitment to don't show and tell and that kind of thing. But even with that, he's doing it because he feels that is the most personal commitment that he has, and he wants to honor it. No ego, hardly any ego here at all. There is some fantasy in spirituality, and there's a lot of support for humanity. And this is the most scattered that I have seen his chart. For those of you just listening and not watching this, we're looking at a blue chart with 12 notes, C, C sharp, D along the bottom, and then 6 octaves of sound. And the more the numbers in this graph are scattered, the more the person is scattered. His foundation here, again, G and G sharp, very solid, and that's useful information, useful outcomes. He'll show later on some high management skills. It's just beginning to show when he's talking here about Obama, and he really feels that the debacle that happened with the prostitutes and the Secret Service guys was all a setup. And it was set up not by Secret Service because it makes them look bad, but they wanted some political people removed. Now remember, this guy is standing there in these meetings like a eunuch, like he has no use whatsoever. They see him as a servant who has signed a contract and never say anything. So they say things in front of him. But he says some of the plans that he had to set through that only dealt with an outcome, the money, or the political positioning, made him ill. To the point one time where he crashed and burned and was out for about, I think he said 6 weeks, because he had just run himself silly trying to protect these people that he did not respect. And he was in quite a bit of cognitive dissonance about this. One of his biggest issues is Obama changing the law without going through Congress, and both parties and both houses agreeing to let him do it and not say anything. And he brought up this idea of the broken windows theory. And he says, we need to quit allowing even small infractions, not let any of them go. The boiling frog idea. Just keep turning up the heat until the frog is cooked. But he said the real issue is power, power, power. Power to control where you go on the roads. Power to control where you go in an airplane, what countries you visit. Power over your health. And I think that in Benghazi was the very last straw for him. Power over what you can do with your children or not. Giving hospitals and agencies power over your children. Did you see the one on the news recently? They arrested a guy for smoking a joint, took his kid away from him. His child died in custody, and he died in jail when they fed him something that he was highly allergic to. Over one stinking joint. Yet you've got all this other corruption going on that nobody says a word about. Yes, Richard, power equals money. Richard, if you have something to say, just jump in here. So this is about...
I'm impressed. I will jump in for a second saying that I'm impressed with his foundation of the charts that you've reviewed, the numbers at the bottom. I mean, he has
Wait a minute.
really...
Somebody's got their mic open. Okay. Please keep your mics closed. It just screeches in my ears, and it hurts. Thank you, Richard. Would you go on? It just screeches in my ears. Martha, please keep your mic shut. Okay, Richard, go ahead.
I was saying that Bongino has an amazing foundation, whether I agree with him or not, and I mostly agree with him, that his foundation of his beliefs and structures are really such a strong foundation of what he's talking about. I mean, experiential, it makes me curious about, did he become the person he is from being where he was, or was he this person going in with such a strong foundation? Because his foundation is really quite remarkable.
It is. I am going, you who keep opening your mic and screeching, I'm going to kick you off the show if you don't stop it. This is the 20th time now. I'm sorry I have to do that, but it just ruins it for everybody else. If you have something you want to say, raise your hand, and when the time comes, we will call on you, and you can speak. Thank you, Richard. This loss of constitutional rights, gun laws, speaking of guns, he hints around, doesn't actually come out and say it, but talks about the people in Benghazi, and they were targeted to be killed because they objected to the gun running. There was a gun running operation through that embassy that they objected to. He said, and you'll hear it in the next one because it's the most important thing, that you react automatically. He said, absolutely and positively, there was a stand-down order. He doesn't know where it came from or who, not one person decided it. Was decided by a group for a stand-down. And the person who actually did the stand-down order was so upset about all of it that they resigned. So you'll be hearing that in just a minute. So this is about the D.C. lobbyist firms that are after him, about both parties attacking him, about them putting nails in his pregnant wife's tires. This one he was most upset about, but very balanced. In an intellectual approach there, you see C-sharp justice. He was calling for justice about this. They wouldn't do a thing. Justice combined with the red, spontaneous, what's right spiritually here. He does lose his G, so this shows that he is fearful and afraid for his family. Again, a very, very strong foundation, almost a double, at least a 1.5 octaves of foundation. Here there is some high ego and fantasy. So I think he's thinking about, he wants to do something about this. But they aren't going to get by him easily. This is a determined man. But when you look at some of the bought elections, using some of the machines that are corrupted, so even to get him out of office, they control the machines. And you've got a good guy, and they pay somebody millions of dollars to go up against him just to disturb the election, split the party. If you think that what you've already heard is a lot, the next few things about what you should or shouldn't believe, and the next one was done after the book came out. It was done on, I think, the 19th of November. That other one maybe was in August. I'll look at the dates again. But this is where they were talking about police corruption, and the police are beginning to turn on Obama because they see what is really going on. What's high in this chart is his love of humanity and caring for spirituality, that's the wrong thing. It's a little bit scattered, but a lot of it deals with protecting the people. It's painful to him to talk about the legacy that's going to be attached to Obama and how it is, I shouldn't say to Obama, to politics, to both parties. He said it's not just Obama. It was set up a long time ago. Obama's just going to get the blame for carrying it out. And I think somebody in that position, if they're being blackmailed, if the courts and the judges are being blackmailed, if the senators and representatives are being blackmailed, time to just come clean and clean house, and that's what he's suggesting. But in terms of the elections being bought, manipulated, and paid for, he says there's nothing we can do about that except we, the people, should not even let one small infraction go unnoticed. Okay, this was about Obama's blame game, and he says he sat in or was in meetings where they did strategize for a year and a half or more about an outcome that they wanted and how to do it in small increments, and about Obama and the blame game, the propaganda campaign, and how he has set this up to make the insurance companies look like the bad guy, when all along you absolutely know that he's behind it. Look at what happened recently when they had this deadline. They just shut everything down, so there wasn't any deadline to even report. I thought that was a brilliant move for the politics of it, but a horrible move for anybody needing to get insurance. And some of the stories going out about this are just heart-wrenching. They don't seem to care. The political system doesn't seem to care about the little people, just so they get theirs. Politically supportive of themselves, politically expedient. He said it's like a big hen gathering everything under them that they can control and let you have just a little bit of a time. So making America go bankrupt so only the government decides about debt. You'll be seeing more of that. He finds this spiritually and emotionally repugnant. He found politics, the way it is today, repugnant. He says he has hope because the forefathers had hope for what we should be doing. Okay, this one is just going to go on. I think this one goes, there's some commercials in here I'm going to cut out. But
I'm going to open the phones up and get into geopolitical news, all these hyped up terror alerts and more that even the New York Times is admitting is being done for political purposes to sell the idea of the NSA targeting the American people. Reuters admits they're giving local police NSA data on petty crimes. and then they have the police go and create a fake investigation to then go get warrants once they've already spied on everybody. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I told you this was going on because of my police sources. It's only done at first in like L.A., New York, in the last decade as a rollout. Now they're giving even middle-sized cities access to NSA stuff. And, of course, 2,000 companies, it was reported, are given access to incredibly classified stuff and your private info. And all sorts of stalkers and people are using it. I mean, this is insane. So we're going to be talking about that coming up. We're also going to be speaking for the rest of the hour with Dan Bongino, the amazing Secret Service agent who's such an eloquent speaker and running for political office, who stands for liberty and is the kind of person we need in office. He's like a Ron Paul 2.0. So we're going to be talking to Dan Bongino, who left as a senior guy going up the top of the ranks because he just couldn't sit there and hear Obama go, "There's no tyranny around the corner. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else did." Telling school kids socialism's good. We're going to be talking to him, though, about embassy security and things because he's a real expert in that. Obviously, being involved in that type of stuff in the overseas trips of the president. So we'll talk to him in a moment. First off, a few of the sponsors.
Okay, this I'm going to cut out as soon as I can find my...
Possible. I only have sponsors I believe in. So be sure and check these sponsors out. Supernatural Silver.
Okay, now I need to go to 345. Try there.
Things I want to talk about with our next guest, Dan Bongino, who again is running for political office in his state, and we should all support him. But first off, I wanted to get an update from him just overall since he resigned in Disgust, which we're seeing more and more of. People in the military, people in defense contractors, people in Homeland Security, Secret Service, they just cannot be part of the shadiness that Staff Sergeant Biggs was just talking about. And they just can't be part of it. And it's kind of a catch-22 because then the good guys are out of it, so that kind of leaves the bad guys. But overall, it's the right moral decision to make. But I wanted to ask him, what does that mean as there's an exodus of people that you would call pro-America, pro-liberty, pro-common sense? And again, he's running for Congress, ladies and gentlemen, in Maryland, and he joins us, and we're going to give you his website as well. He's running for Maryland's 6th district. And I want to call him Congressman right now. And I'm told, they know you're a threat. I'm told you got your house burglarized. So that shows that somebody's certainly concerned.
Yeah, it's not the first time, Alex. And thanks for having me, by the way. They've targeted my cars. My wife was 8 months pregnant, and someone put nails in 2 of her tires. 4 of my campaign staff, same thing, and campaign headquarters broken into. But that's kind of what they do, and I just roll with it. I'm 6'1", 215 pounds, so I'm more worried about my family than I am myself. But, that's what they do. It's buggery at its finest, and unfortunately, when you speak out and you stand for liberty and you stand against, and I just want to make this one point. It's not just against the Obama administration. I think you know that. There are Republicans out there, too, who couldn't care any less about liberty. There are some out there who care more about their own power than liberty, too. So it's a bipartisan indictment of the system, but you definitely put a target on your back when you do that.
Absolutely. And Scripps Howard News Service, AP, you name it, have picked up all the burglaries and harassment that you're going through right now. I mean, that right there is the certification that you're the man right there, and the campaign's going well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're shaking people up, we've had a few left-wing outlets come after us. For everything from shocker meeting with conservatives in D.C., left-wing media outlet went after us and said, yeah, he meets with conservatives in D.C. to advance conservative causes. What a scandal. That we had some meetings with another journalism outfit, too. I mean, they make up stuff. It's really terrible. And, if you only knew, folks, what went on behind closed doors, I mean, you would be disgusted. If you think this government revolves around a citizen-centric model, and that public service is a priority, and I've got bad news for you. You're living in a fantasy land. I mean, there are some good people out there, don't get me wrong, but they're very few, and you mentioned it in the opening of the show. More and more people are just turning up their, turning their head in disgust and walking away and finding out, not walking away from making a difference, but walking away and finding out a different way to shake up the system, because it is unquestionably broken.
I know you saw a lot of things, and you signed national security agreements, so you can't talk about it, or you'll go to jail like a whistleblower. But when you talk about the dirty deals behind the scenes, we've got a good idea. It seems like the corruption's so rampant now, they don't even get in trouble. You said it was the speeches and things was one reason you left, hearing Obama basically push stuff that Mal would push. But I think that's obviously the main suspects. It would be other feds coming in because of what you do know. Aren't you in probably danger because of some of the things you saw? You may not even know what they were that's got them concerned, why they're breaking into your house and your car and places like that. My question is, if I knew all the stuff you knew, I'd probably go ahead and just say it, because then I think that makes you safer, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not a bad point, but, I did swear an allegiance, and my oath means something to me. And outside of the things I saw which were blatantly unconstitutional, which I have no obligation under my oath to the Constitution to keep quiet, outside of those things, obviously they're personal things, I keep quiet. But, this isn't faux bravery on my part. I mean it, Alex. I'm not sitting here trying to, to sit there and pound my chest. But I just don't worry about it that much. My family and I took an enormous financial hit to do what we did, to walk away. My FBC records are public. You can look yourself. We certainly didn't get rich off any of this. But the country is at a turning point. I mentioned this last time I was on your show. This is a real turning point. Not one of those fictional turning points where people just like to rally you up. Oh, we're at the turning point. This is it. We are moving down one of these paths where your liberty is being treated like a commodity you can't exchange. It's traded amongst people and faux party officials and insiders and cronies. Your liberty, and yet, oddly enough, the one person out at the table is you. So, you have to say to yourself, when you're someone like me on the inside, and I honor and I respect the Secret Service agents who, these guys and men and women are fantastic. They put their lives on the line, in a heartbeat for the president and everyone else they protect. But I felt kind of like a parasite, like I was, just sucking off the system, and that I wasn't doing everything I could do. And I kept imagining a eulogy in a world that was different than the world we know today, for the worst. And someone saying, well, what did he do to change it? And then my kids looking up and going, well, I don't know. Well, I can tell you right now, they're not going to have any problem answering that question now.
Dan, I admire you so much. I don't say that to be sappy, because I've gone through some of the same things you've gone through, the break-ins, the physical attacks, the death threats, where they're listening to your phone and tell you what you were talking about, so you know it's the government or contractors. And for people that haven't experienced this, they don't know. And people say, aren't you scared? Why do you go, out in public? Why do you go do the things you do with no bodyguards? And you know what? It's not even about being afraid. I've chosen a side, but it's not even choosing. I'm not a thug and a criminal. I'm not a scumbag. I'm not part of their gang. I don't even have free will, really. I have to confront and oppose these people, and I think that's what you just crystallized there, is that, you're not beating your chest saying, I don't care, I'm not scared. It's beyond courage. It's you cannot commit the world to evil, and standing down is joining it. Silence is consent, and you will not be part of the dark side.
Yeah, we're being ruled. We're not being governed anymore. What made this country great, exceptional, different than every other place in the world is the respect and the dignity of individual liberty, a constitution that limited them, the government, not you. But I think unfortunately, a lot of the soccer mom crowd is ignoring is the fact that your liberty is really disappearing in real time, and it has a real consequence, Alex. Look at your economic liberty. What do you think taxation is? If you work for $100 a year using round numbers, and now upwards to 47 to 50% of it is taken by the government through sales, income, capital gains, corporate, all these other taxes, then 40% of the time you work for someone else. That's not liberty or freedom. When you look at Obamacare, do you really think that was about health care? Seriously, do you really believe that was about health care? I assure you, having lived in this bubble, it has nothing to do with health care. It has everything to do with taking away life or death decision-making away from you and putting it in their pockets. We've never had any kind of education liberty. Public school system doesn't say,
it's death panels. It's socialist, eugenics, absolutely. And it's buying and selling our liberties, trading them away. I want to get into the Benghazi situation because you're somebody that was the head guy when Obama went overseas. So you know exactly what went on there, and it's coming out missiles to Al-Qaeda and the stand down. But before we go there, let's right now make this important. You put it on the line. You didn't talk to me before you came on the air. You were coming on about the embassy stuff. I'm saying this now. Everybody in Maryland needs to stand with Dan Bongino and his family and get him into office. This is a real guy, folks. You can feel it. You can see it. Your gut tells you we've got to put this guy in Congress with an overwhelming vote to overpower their electronic voting machines. These are the type of people we need there who have a conscience that that's their most valued possession is being honorable. And how do people donate? What's the best site to go to? Bongino.com?
Yeah, thank you. Bongino.com. I appreciate that, Al. Thank you.
No, people, but they do not just donate. They need to come out and support you in Maryland. I mean, I'm reading the campaign's going well. You're getting support.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. Last time we ran, we started with nothing. I had 2 donors, me and my father, and we built the largest donor list in Maryland, one of the largest donor lists in the Northeast corridor. I mean, we really fired up a grassroots base. And, it was funny how people would say to me when I would give speeches, because, I never wrote them. I would just go out and speak from the heart. And people would say, wow, I've never heard anything like that before. And I said, that's the sad part. That all I did was just tell you the truth, and you thought it was good. It wasn't good. It was just unusual because you're so not used to hearing the truth from people that when a guy gets up there and speaks with some passion about what's really happening, you think it's, quote, good. There's nothing good about it. It's just the truth. The truth has no agenda. And we just built a massive army of people. So starting this time was obviously a lot easier than last time where we had to build it from scratch. Now we have a solid base of support. We have a huge social media following on Facebook and Twitter, and it really helps me get the liberty message out. I try to tweet Facebook about liberty at least 2 or 3 times a week, and it's never scripted. I come home, I'll usually put on some music, and I will just go and tell people how I really feel and what I saw and what I think is really wrong, and importantly, how we can fix this disaster we're in now.
Absolutely. And folks can go to Bongino.com and find your Twitter, find your Facebook. Everybody should follow you there. In fact, I'm going to tweet out during the next break from Real Alex Jones at Twitter for folks to follow you, and I hope listeners. Libertarians and constitutionalists don't tend to be big Twitter people, but we all need to become big Twitter folks because sometimes I'm out there in the field. That's all I've got to get a message out, and the same thing for Mr. Bongino. And the fact that they're coming after him, breaking in his house, his car, harassing his family, right there, folks, we just had on Staff Sergeant Biggs with all the other Special Forces guys that were friends with Michael Hastings, who know they killed him, and they're all scared, folks. And it just shows how dangerous this is. But if they put a bullet in me, I want 10 more to stand up in my place. If they put a bullet in Bongino, you've got to do the same thing. I mean, enough is enough, folks. The war for this republic is now. Now, shifting gears, speaking of bullets, they put bullets in Ambassador Stevens. Knowing what you know about embassy security, a lot of it classified, running foreign operations when the president would go overseas and visit embassies, what is going on from a trained eye when you see that?
Well, what I found out about this is there's been communications between al-Zawahiri in Pakistan and Yemen. One of the main AP operators in Yemen. But the brazenness of the communication strikes me. Here's what I mean. These guys are very, and I don't mean this qualitatively, please, but they're very savvy in a devious way with their communication. They learn everything from using drop boxes in emails that don't formally send it. All kinds of, I don't even want to give anybody else any ideas, but ways to manipulate cell phones so they can't be traced. They are very savvy in that respect. The fact that they likely knew they were being monitored, which of course they know, and brazenly made these kind of communications, knowing it was going to get out there, says to me, from having gone through this over and over and having read volumes of intel reports and overseas ops, was that this was really in the end operational stage, and any fear of having the operation broken up was probably not really, didn't frighten them enough to communicate. This thing was ready to go. But the problem, Alex, is I don't really trust this administration anymore with their information. And they've lost all credibility between Benghazi and we don't even know what was going on there with potential gun running. I mean, they really don't have any credibility. The only thing that makes me believe this could be really credible, and I hope it's not, is that a lot of the foreign embassies have shut down too, and we're usually pretty reluctant, especially after Iraq, to be sharing information and intel with foreign embassies and foreign governments.
Sure. Well, I mean, Obama's bad enough, and I know they'll crucify you if you agree with me. He's bad enough, and even the New York Times says these terror alerts are being used for political purposes to distract from NSA, to turn a blind eye and let some jihadi group fund it up the chain. They're funding them in Syria and Libya to attack a few embassies as a political distraction. This could also be a false flag Obama's about to pull.
Well, this NSA thing, they need to get the attention off this thing so badly, and I cannot believe. I mean, really, there's a part of me that is having a hard time digesting the fact that there are people who call themselves Republicans out there who actually support this program. You know, folks, information in the hands of a government without an independent arbiter reviewing it. Remember, the Constitution, secure in your effects, right? Without a warrant or an independent, because I don't consider the FISA court, it's not, it's a rubber stamp, okay?
Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, stay there, sir. We're going to come right back to you and have you finish that point on Benghazi.
Wow. What he said was we are being ruled, not governed. Ron Paul tried to lead this to the public, and he got shot down, degraded, spit on for his efforts to try to show this up. Now, here's some other people. Mike, I can't remember his name. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, think about what this guy said, that we go looking at this idea of the broken window theory. Quit allowing even small infractions. We are going to put an announcement up on Facebook about this. If you would go to Lake, or if anybody can get us in touch with Alex Jones, he and I have same frequencies very high, so I don't know if he'll let me on his show, but he needs to let somebody on the show about this and showing that we can prove that this guy has a strong foundation. He also needs to let us on about our program with post-traumatic stress disorder. We just brought somebody on board as volunteer this week, actually today, that's going to head up that post-traumatic stress disorder program all over the country. She's associated with Wounded Warriors. She is a soldier. She went through all of this. She's still going through it. She knows what it is, and we want to help. So putting those groups together. We also have somebody on board, not a volunteer, but somebody that is going to head up the marketing part of this for all of you newbies. So if any of you have any suggestions, there's a lot of our practitioners on here. Any suggestions for content for Vocal Profiling Live or our next week happy hour, which I think we're either doing detox or fibromyalgia. I can't remember. We've had some technical difficulties and we're behind a bit on our schedule. So let us know. Please post about this information, even if it's just the idea of where this book is or the links to these shows. Post it to all of your friends. Let's start a revolution. Well, let's start an evolution. I like that better. Any ending thoughts, Richard?
I had to mute myself over here a few times. I'm going with follow the money. It just
That's
seems
what it
like,
is.
We need to get money out of, we need to get lobbying out of government. We need to get government back to being government, not a place where, people go to make bags of money and then retire into another corporation.
For the people, by the people. That's why we're doing Guardian. So we also invite all of you to join us on Guardian, which is a once-a-month workshop where we look at software, give you the software. Last week we did 2. It was fibromyalgia, and I can't remember what the other one was. But that's an exciting program because it's going to come a time when you look at what's going on, and it's control. And I took some notes. I watched these things so many times. I took some notes, and one of the things they said is it's not about control of health care. It's about control of life and death. Here it is. Obamacare is not health care. It has everything to do with taking away life and death decisions and putting it in their pocket. Turning liberty into a commodity. Commit to evil. Silence is consent. We are being ruled, not governed. I already said that. Listen to these. One's 44 minutes, one's 23 minutes. And what, if you can hear Dan Bongino any place or read his book, I think it's the pivot point. I was already on the pivot point, but I think he makes such a compelling, stunning case for what he stood and heard being planned, and more of it is coming out. You heard him say, Benghazi, people who believe this silly crap about it was a video, those people were marked to be murdered because they didn't agree with the gun running, and the gun running was providing guns to both sides so our army could come in and fight both sides and not only die there, but like the PTSD, come back here and die every day. I said that wrong. One soldier dies every day from PTSD. That's a shame, and the government won't take care of it. It's up to us. It's in our hands now. Please go out and Kindle or whatever Dan Bongino's book, Inside the Bubble. It is incredible. Thank you for being here. I know all of you are caring people, or you wouldn't be here. And we'll see you, I think our next meeting is on Sunday with Sound Health Options. We have an expert on cholesterol and high blood pressure and diabetes that's going to be with us and have some real practical advice. Hope to see you soon. We'll talk later.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.